put myself out there to invite a new guest, I'm always thinking, hey, I would love to have this person on my show. I know exactly why, and I know exactly what I would talk to them about, but it's okay for them to say no to me. Hello, my entrepreneur friends. Welcome back to another video, or if you're listening to this one on the podcast, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about podcasting since I said podcast now 2 times at least. And how do I get to invite quote unquote high level, quote unquote more accomplished entrepreneur to my show, and how do I get them to come? How do I get them to accept my invite? And my very latest guest was actually Megan Jackson from 1P Creative. And I remember many of my friends reacted, but one of my friends was like, what do you do? Like, are you like a pro networker? Like, teach me your ways. And that message got me thinking, okay, maybe I need to talk to you more about this. How do I get those people to come to the show? So here we are. This video, we are going to cover how do you get high-level people to come to your show. We're going to cover what are the motivations of the people who come to podcasts. And we are also going to cover how to get them to come to the podcast. I'm going to tell you what I say, and I can actually grab the exact message that I usually send to people, so you guys can also do the same. Now, the very first thing that I want you guys to understand is there are 2 very important litmus tests, internal tests that I always do before I invite someone to come to my podcast. The very first is, do I like the person? Do I like the person? Yes or no? Second is, if I was to interview this person, do I know exactly what I would be talking about with this person? So sometimes I like certain entrepreneurs and I follow certain entrepreneurs, but I don't know the answer to the second question, which is like, what would I do with them? And until that part becomes crystal clear to me, I don't invite them to my podcast, because even if I like someone but I don't know what to do with them, it's going to be really hard for me to craft my message. You'll find it out soon in the towards the end of this video, but it's going to be very hard for me to craft a personalized message if I don't know why exactly I want that person on my show and what would I be talking about, right? So if I like this person and I know this person and I want to have a specific reason and I want to have a specific topic I want to discuss with them, that I'm actually fulfilling all my litmus test questions and I can go ahead and act around it. Now, what is the motivation for people to do podcast with you? Especially if your show is not a massive show. Now, I want you to think about podcast guests in 3 different categories. And depending on which category your ideal podcast guest falls into, there could be different outcomes. Now, the first type of podcast guest is the podcast guest who is much more on the transactional bandwidth. Like, they have a more of like a transactional mindset. So when you are reaching out to people who have, and you don't know that until you do it, right? So when you are reaching out to people who have more of a transactional mindset, it's usually because they are in a season where if they're going to do shows and they're going to guest in shows, they want to make sure they maximize that. So it's either helping them grow their status, grow their brand, or sell something, get more subscribers, get exposed to different audiences. Now, you can tell that maybe that's the outcome of everyone who wants to do podcasts, but it's not always the case. The first type of entrepreneur who is more of a transactional standpoint, it's completely understandable. They would also be asking about my numbers, my downloads. They would want to see the stats before they say yes to coming to your show. And that's okay. If you don't have the numbers that they require, that's okay. I had people reject me because they wanted certain numbers that I didn't have at the time. It's been 3 years I've been running this podcast, so I didn't have those stats and they said no. That's okay. So that's the first type of entrepreneur that you are going to meet. there's nothing wrong with that approach. It's just that personally, it didn't work for me because I didn't have the numbers that I wanted. And I also had someone who was like, how much do you pay? And I'm like, okay. So again, I'm sure there are collaborations and I'm sure there are podcast guests who want to do this to get paid. That's a different type of, maybe I'm going to be there once I'm going to have a paid podcast. I don't know. But it's not the realms I'm personally in. So those scenarios, whoever I'm inviting and they're asking all those things, I'm already like, I can sense that they are just like, they are here to get this transactional thing, which is like they are in that season where they don't need more per se. And they also want to make sure that they get like instant benefits. They want instant benefits of having to come to your show. Okay. The second type of entrepreneurs that you will meet is the type that wants to practice their message more and the way they speak. They use this opportunity to learn public speaking, to express themselves better, and they would take this opportunity to come to your show just so that they can practice. Now, that's awesome because if you like them and if you know what you would want to talk to them, it's fine because in your case, it's gonna most likely be a yes. They're gonna say yes to you and they're gonna come. Now, the thing is with people who are still practicing and they can be wildly successful business owners, it's really not being really good at expressing and talking in public, quote unquote, has nothing to do with how successful you are as a business owner. It's a different skill. It's a different skill to be really good in interviews, to be coherent, to make sense, to not ramble. It's a skill, right? And it's okay for them to learn. And you're winning because they are coming to your show. And they are winning because they get to practice, they get to express, they get to learn way to talk, and it's a win-win for both of you. Now, the third type of entrepreneur, which I personally love to have on my show, I'm so grateful to get these people and have these deep and meaningful conversations. Now, these are the type of entrepreneurs who are seasoned podcasters. They go on shows, they understand the game, they understand the long-term vision behind podcasting and doing guest appearances. They understand that when you do podcasts with someone, it's going to be out there forever. So whenever they look up your name, like whoever clients, whatever scenario, when people look into your name, they're gonna see that podcast episode that you did 2 years ago with someone. Or if they're gonna look on YouTube, they're gonna find your interview that you did. They understand that people consume content, a lot of content, before they make a buying decision, and a lot of them, they want to listen to like different mediums and different outlets of the same person. They want to read their books, they want to read articles, they want to listen to podcasts, they want to listen to videos, they want to see them from like different angles, they want to see them interviewed. They also understand that it's okay if there is no immediate benefit, because remember, they're long-term thinkers. I'm building the brand, I'm building my reputation, and it's a fragmented content pieces that the customers and the clients, they need to consume before they become a buyer. So it's not that this one episode has to make ROI, return on investment, or I don't do podcast guesting anymore, because they understand that too. Now, the third thing they understand, which I personally love the most about them, is that they understand the importance of the message. And whichever medium you're given the chance to talk about their mission and their message and to serve people, they're gonna take it, because they understand inherently that their mission to put that message out there, like no matter how and in what circumstance, as long as it's out there somehow, it's worth it. And what I especially love about them is they're not coming to your show to plug in their next program. They're not coming to your show to maximize every opportunity to plug in their new book. They're not coming to your show and saying in every second sentence that, yeah, that's exactly what I teach in my program, right? So when I deal with seasoned podcasters who go, I'm calling them seasoned podcaster, but I mean like seasoned podcast guests, but they truly understand that it's a long-term game. It's just one piece of the puzzle. Can I get to talk about my message and mission? Yes or no? And if it's yes, I'm going to come and take that opportunity. And I think that's kind of the rookie guest versus the pro guest. The pro guest is chill, is here to serve, is here to be present, is here to play the long game and to understands those building blocks and the long-term consequences of coming to a show. And the reason why I was able to tap into quote unquote a high level podcast guest is because I had a really good amount of threes on my show, like three meaning the third type of entrepreneur who is here to serve. And I think those collaborations and those interviews, they're always the most meaningful to me as a host, and I believe to the guests as well, because we get to have just a sort of fun chat and just hang out and cook something valuable together and share that with everyone. So that's my take on the type of people that you can have on your podcast. So what do I say in the messages when it comes to reaching out to podcast guests? Now, the very first thing that you guys need to understand that you have to approach them with a little bit of openness, but also to give them an opportunity to either say yes or no. So every time I put myself out there to invite a new guest, I'm always thinking, hey, I would love to have this person on my show. I know exactly why, and I know exactly what I would talk to them about, but it's okay for them to say no to me. That's perfectly fine by me. That's kind of my mental preparation. And the second step is obviously finding out an email or some kind of availability for you to actually reach out to them. Now, some of them do have executive assistant or personal assistants. And if you really, really cannot find any of their contact information or email, most entrepreneurs have like first name at theirbusiness.com. Like that's basically their address. But if you really, really cannot find that, you slid into their emails. I prefer to communicate the podcast guest invite via email. Somehow email is much more professional in that scenario. So I would look into that email and I would send that to that email. Or if I really cannot find their emails, I would send to their support or contact email, and I would ask as if I'm talking to a personal assistant to have them to help me guide them to the person and help me guide them to book them on my show. So sometimes I'm coordinating with VAs and personal assistants, and they are the ones who have access to the calendar of the person, and I would fix the appointment with them instead of talking to the person directly. Again, it depends on the type of entrepreneur. Some you can really easily reach an email to them, and some you have to kind of go through a little bit of a hoop. You know, there is a little bit of a filtering process, which is completely fine. In that scenario, you would be coordinating with a VA or a personal assistant or some kind of executive assistant around them. But understanding this, that's how you're going to craft your message, okay? Now, I'm going to give you my exact script that I was using to invite Megan from One Peak Creative, okay? Now, first of all, my subject line was, and I'm going to put the email in the screen so you guys can see. My subject line was podcast invite for the one and only Megan. Hi, Megan. I hope this email finds you well. I love your TikTok/Instagram reels. The scripts, the randomness, and the production value reminds me a little bit of the Harmon Brothers. Again, I put this personal reference to the Harmon Brothers because they produce excellent video ads, okay? Specifically, this girl, they do video ads. So I had to kind of put that in the mix so that she knows I compare them to this very, very high-end, amazing advertising agency. So I said, I'm actually comparing to them. Anyway, I have a marketing podcast called Omnichannel that I've been running for the past 3 years. where I interview digital marketing experts on all things online marketing and some business stuff. I would love to interview you on 1P Creative, your journey, and how the hell you come up with those amazing shot ideas and scripts, etc. Let me know if you're open-minded. Thanks. Hope we can get to chat soon, don't we? P.S. Link the podcast for you if you're curious. And I actually put a link onto my podcast. So that was my message. And she said, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm a huge fan of them, the Harmon brothers. They do such a great work. I really appreciate thinking of me. I would absolutely love to come and share a little bit about our story. Do you have a specific date in mind? Looking forward to it, Meg. So she responded to me, I would say within a week. And that was her response. Now, I can give you guys a couple of scripts like that, but I think you guys get the point. What I like to do when I reach out to them is find their emails or find a support email that I can connect to. And then I would send them the email and the message. If I was to send this entire message to a VA, I would be asking like, hey, I really want to interview this person on my podcast. And I would love to talk to her about this. I think she or he is amazing at this. Do you know who should I talk to book her or him on my podcast? Thank you so much. So in that scenario, I'm coordinating with the person. Like sometimes I say, like, do you know if this person has an executive assistant I can talk to? Can you please direct me to that person? So what ends up happening is the support will hook me up with the assistant then who will actually help me fix the interview. So that's like a little bit more of like a hoop type of thing. There's more filtering there. Coordinating with VAs sometimes or executive assistants, it can also be leading you to booking your guests. So either works, like either if you're able to talk to the person or email to the person directly, you can find out their emails or the company emails on their website or Instagram accounts, or you just reach out to their support and try to investigate to get connected with the right person who is in charge of the booking. So I really hope these tips were helpful for you and you guys are going to absolutely invite the most amazing people on your show. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening and watching to this one, and I'll see you guys very soon.